Welcome back to another episode of the Finance Bible podcast. Zeke here.
And your co-host, Oscar. But before we get into it, please note that nothing in this podcast should ever be considered as personal financial advice.
Of course, if that is what you are seeking, reach out, we'll get you in touch with the correct professionals, get the job done properly.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Let's get into it. Healthcare now, like the amount of money, we call it healthcare, but it's really actually problem band-aiding. It's not healthcare, it's you've got a problem and they're just working with it, they're managing it. So it's like issue management, not healthcare.
Yeah.
The amount of money that you spend on that now as an elderly person or a retiree will be
Especially in the States. The
exponential. The States is chaos, but
even here.
Yeah, everywhere. Here is getting bad too.
So that just literally just drives the point of you need a comfortable amount of money in retirement to pay for things like that. If anything comes up with your health and the risks and you need to see a doctor or you need surgery, you need cover and money to pay for that so you're not out of pocket. Going back on statistics, just mentioned before, 65% rely on the pension, but also 67% of Australians as a whole, they worry about not being able to retire the way they want to, which is extremely alarming. Imagine not wanting to retire the way, or just being in bed, looking at the roof, looking at out the window, just thinking, I'm not going to be able to replicate my income. Because a lot of people, the whole working life, let's say generally you work from 21 to 60. So you've got around 40 years roughly of your working time. And in that years, you've started on a lower income, you've made your way up to the top, and then it kind of plateaus. And then once you hit 60, a lot of the time, your income, visualize a cliff. Your income falls off the cliff because now your super, let's say you're on around $120,000 for 30 years of your life, because you've just been relying on your super, just invested in industry super fund. Now you might be relying on $40,000, $50,000. So you've taken a pay cut. The difference between retiring comfortably and struggling is those who retire comfortably, when they retire, they get a pay rise or they keep the same pay. So, how can you do that? It's through investing. It's through purchasing property, shares, actually planning your retirement accordingly and letting compound interest growth, capital growth, and also cash flow from rental properties. If it is the properties which you're looking at, which for us it's our main kind of focus, let them work for you, because as we've seen, 67%, that is a large number of the population nervous about their retirement. And if that was any of my family, that is it'd just be horrible.
Yeah, it's amazing, and you think about how many people actually actively think about it day in, day out. Like, how many people do we meet that they're just hitting 45, 50 and they're just sitting there going, I probably will retire soon, so I might start thinking about it. Well, they come to us for a completely different reason.
It's like, can you retire? Let's do some numbers. Let's actually see if you can retire. When you want to retire, 10 years. All right, well, mate, you can't.
Yeah,
you actually won't be able to.
You can, but let me tell you'll be living what's called a modest retirement.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And if anyone didn't see that, Zeke did have the spirit fingers up when he said modest.
I had a little finger wave going. But it's just chaos, and everyone's been misled. Like, it's no one's fault out there. Like, no individual should be held accountable for it. Like, up until this point now, it's getting to a point where you should be held accountable because the information's out there.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to actually go and learn about super and where you're headed and what you can do. But it's just ridiculous.
The main problem I see, everyone listening to this will see every week, every night, is you put the TV on, you see an ad. At the moment, we were watching TV last night here in Sydney, and we saw an ad for a industry super fund, and it was just so irrelevant ad, a big blue monster walking down the street, and a lady sitting on top of it saying, "Your super is better invested with us. We'll have you have a comfortable retirement, etc." little do they know that the fees. There's a lot of fees in the back end of industry super funds, and do your research because it's not all perfect. You've got to make sure you know where your money's going, what it's invested in, because sometimes it may be appropriate, depending on your balance, to look elsewhere. And let's say, for argument's sake, when we help clients with their super, they look at investing in a self-managed super fund, which gives them access to leverage into property, for example, but also gives them a different structure in terms of fees, helping them save money, which is a area that isn't really spoken about because there's no articles about how self-managed super funds are better than industry super funds. But actually there are, but they're not in mainstream media. You've really got to dig the internet to find them, or you got to speak to a team who works for it. But don't get caught up in the whole media, the media spiel, because it's what the government wants you to do. We were speaking with Raymond the other week, and it was off air. He was speaking about the amount industry super funds put in for advertising for
Oh,
people to actually invest into the government fund. So they're pumping up their own tires, getting more money and popping it back in advertising, and we're all paying for it.
that advert
We're
that we
paying
saw that you're
taxes.
talking about
We're
had me
paying our
going.
tax, and we're also paying a fees for the industry fund. Bloody hell, can't get it out. Do you remember the number it was?
I don't remember the exact
But it
number,
was
but
a ridiculous amount of money.
it was upwards of like 280 million
Ridiculous.
purely on advertising.
Just on those silly ads of the. Well, you remember as a young kid when one's going up the escalator, one's going down. Said, "Oh, Jimmy saved this much, and Jimmy could retire an extra $30,000 in retirement thanks to an industry super fund."
Yeah, and you get the ads from Cbus saying how they're so loyal and they've been returning. And don't quote me on this number because it's an ad that I've seen. I have seen I don't know when because I don't watch TV that has ads on it anymore. I feel like no one really does. But it was
Oh, I do watch the occasional Survivor on
and
Channel
you love
10.
maths.
I do love Maps,
Yep,
and Love Island's good.
Love Island is
Love
good.
Island's you stream that now.
Can
Oh,
confirm.
but there are still ads on that now.
Yeah, but
Anyway,
yeah, it was something like they've been consistently returning 9% per annum, and it's like okay, well that's pretty well been the average over the 50 years. So like you're not doing anyone any favors.
hmm.
Like stop spending our money from our fees advertising back to us that you're doing good when realistically we all know the truth. We're not going to throw anyone directly under the bus in terms of super funds. Zbus got a mention there, but it's not
They're on
a
the same.
direct
They're
attack
on the
on them.
same boat. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're on the same boat
we're
when you can
broadly
compare it to
declaring
self-managed
war.
funds. Declaring war,
Um,
and we're shut down.
back on the other part of the pension. Did we talk about the asset threshold?
No, we didn't.
All right. So the asset threshold is an interesting one as well because if you have a certain amount of superannuation as a homeowner,
Mm.
then you get less of the pension and or you don't qualify for it at all. So for a full pension, your limit as a single homeowner is 301 grand
As an asset base.
as an asset base, excluding the home. So you can have 300 grand in super and that's it. No cash, no anything, no like cars, everything's taken into account.
Mm.
So you go over that and you start getting a bit of the part pension. It deteriorates pretty quick. But couple combined, homeowner, what do you reckon for a couple?
In terms of the amount, I'll just 500.
450.
Yeah, yeah.
So
There you go.
you've
Close.
you're a couple, one of you has 200 grand, the other has 250, but then you've got the cars, you've got XYZ, you've got savings, you've got investments or whatever going on. Well, guess what? Bump you down to the part pension. You've got too much money. So
That's actually a joke, isn't it?
my favorite is non-homeowner though.
Oh, what's non-homeowner?
Non-homer.
Non-homer. Jeez,
Well,
Homer
geez,
Simpson.
I nearly ended up saying something that would have got us cancelled there.
Oh,
Bit of a tongue twister.
Jesus.
But if you're a non-home owner, then as a single, what do you think to get the full pension your asset value can be? Think about it. You got to pay for a home. Like you've got to pay rent. like 40 grand a year in rent free, 30 grand a year in rent.
Couple hundred.
540,000.
500?
Yeah,
Are you serious?
yeah.
How the hell is someone going to get that much money
And
if they
even
got no like assets or anything?
but even if they have that money, that's not enough to generate enough money to pay rent and
No,
live.
500K, not enough.
What about a couple? So you're part of a couple.
Part of a couple,
You're a
seven.
non-homeowner.
Seven.
Yeah, six
On the dollar route.
690 ish.
There you go.
Plus a couple thousand and 500. But
Mm,
if you're if you're part of a couple, you've got an asset value of 693 grand. So your super might be 300 each, and then you have like 45 each in savings.
mm,
You got to pay for a couple. Let's say you got a couple of children as well. You've got a 4 bedroom house, then maybe a three that you're renting. So going rate for that, just use my place as an example, 650 a week, give or take.
mm.
So you're up at a fair chunk of money, and you've got to generate that on the 650 grand a year. How do you do that? You don't.
You don't. You
33 grand
you
in
just get
rent.
another job. And
Yeah.
that's what people do.
So everyone listening, basically, if you're going to qualify for the pension, I would stress very heavily that I don't think it is enough, personally.
No. And as we mentioned earlier, every single year that's going to get rolled back. And the amount, I wouldn't be surprised if it starts to slowly decrease as well. So it's not I'm on the pension, she'll be right. It's oh shit, I'm on the pension.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes back to the old school mentality because it's hard because a lot of individuals are stuck in the mentality that our grandparents would have had and it worked fine. Or our great grandparents and life was easy. So it's, go to school, get a good job, buy a home, pay off the home, retire, live off your super. And life was cruisy. Your super paid you, the government was looking after you, everyone was living their lives. It was very relaxed. Now, though, you can't do that. You can't just buy a home. Well, if you do, you're in debt 1.5 mil, and then that's going to take quite a while to pay that off before you can invest. So that's the first issue. And then second issue is just relying on your super. You've really got to understand that you have to set different goals to leapfrog over the old school mentality of she'll be right. You got to invest. You've got to speak to professionals if you're not too sure what to do, because time is on your side when you are investing. The younger you are, the better the outcome will be if you start now. But even if you're coming to your later years, you can still do something before it's too late and you retire. There is always a way.
I've just actually found, completely off topic, we're going back to the plants and soil
Oh, here we go.
because it was really
You need
annoying
your
me.
own little plant episode.
I do. Maybe I'll do
You
a
actually
health
should do a little
episode.
health
I'll do a
episode
health episode. Imagine that.
because
I'd
you
go
love
off.
that.
Um, so the actual study I was talking about was in the 1960s, I
Oh,
believe, but I'm having trouble finding the specific material to reference it. What I've done is I've just had a look, and there was a second study that came out focused on plants between 1975 and 1997. I'll throw out a few numbers for you. Calcium levels in that time period, so 22 years. How much do you think calcium levels dropped in an average of 12 fresh vegetables?
37%.
27%.
Oof.
Iron levels over that 22 years, how much do you reckon they dropped?
19.
37%.
Oh,
And
whoops.
that's okay. So everyone out there with iron deficiency, I mean, I know a lot of the population has it. So if they've dropped 37% from 75 to 1997, imagine
Imagine now.
imagine now. Imagine what they were in like
Imagine right
1930.
now.
Yeah. Well, that's why you need 67 times the spinach, I guess. Vitamin A levels, what do you reckon?
27.
21%. Vitamin
Mhm.
C,
Similar.
30%.
Mm.
And there's more and more on it. Like, there's one focusing on 1930 all the way to 1980. and talking about different things, like even potassium, which is a very less common one to focus on, 14%. Um, but that's just a couple of examples.
Where I am going to organize an episode for you, just you, to do an
Just
episode on
me.
health because you love it.
Mate, I just feel like I know.
And I'll throw in some gym talk in that as well.
I feel like I know so many random things about
You just
like
love it.
health and that,
You love health. But
and their statistics.
that's our that's a good spiel on super in our thoughts and also a bit of health.
Yeah, well, we should continue on this.
Yeah, well,
Not
it's
necessarily the plant stuff,
no
but
the super side.
yeah,
Let's keep going.
yeah. So, I mean, we've already talked about a couple of things, but why focus on actually building assets? One of them we've already spoke about a little bit is health, like the cost of health.
And
As
for
I
future
said,
health, the cost financially and also emotionally.
yeah, well, that's true because how many people actually, if you want to find out an interesting statistic,
Oh yeah, let me.
find out how many people are on mental health medication in Australia.
Mhm.
That's a good one to talk about. But
Not this episode.
oh, we'll make a
That
because
could be part of your health
well,
episode.
no, we can just say the statistic because it's how many people are paying money for that kind of thing.
4.8 million.
Holy crap, that's actually a
That
lot.
is a lot. 18, so 18% of Australians.
That's more than I thought.
That is insane, and that costs quite a bit.
Yeah, so I know for a fact that they're not cheap. And if you're on them, you're pretty well on them. You know what I mean? So health costs, you've got healthcare, hands down. You've got um, medication. You've got mental health. You've got healthcare for travel, like health insurance and
Travel
stuff like that.
insurance.
Travel insurance. You've got leisure, so if you're out doing anything like massages and that kind of thing. Private health insurance, hospital fees, hospital cover, all of that's very expensive and only going up and up and up.
Pet insurance.
Pet insurance, yep, fair enough. Legacy planning,
Yeah, that's a big one.
so you pay for legacy planning, financial planning, and that kind of thing. And also, if you get assets, then you can legacy plan and have stuff to leave to your children.
Which I would have just thought a lot of people would want to do that. Which I know they do.
Yeah, it's just getting there at
It's
the
just
right time.
not being able to.
Then you've got reducing reliance, which we've kind of touched on. You know, the pension. Do you want to rely on that?
Mm,
Is the government going to be
I wouldn't
reliable for
rely
the
on it.
next 30 years? Like people in their 20s, do you really think that in 45 years, when you may qualify for the pension, that they'll still be paying it
Big
at that point in
asterisks
time?
on May.
Do you think they'll be paying it that far into the
I
future
think they will stop paying it in 25 years.
in 25 years?
Actually, probably less.
Well, let's hope
We'll
we're
put a
both
wager on
still
that one.
kicking to have a look at that.
Yes.
Um, and then like peace of mind. Imagine a world where you can just go to bed at night, be like, oh yeah, I don't have to work tomorrow because I'm retired,
And not be worried about,
and
but I'm
that's
only
just it.
having $100 come in. You know what income's coming in. You got good amount of income coming in, and you can relax.
You know what? Actually, when I was working for a specific major four bank,
Well, there's only four to pick from. Which one, mate?
makes it easy.
Which one?
What's this one? Um, one of the main things that actually made me want to get into what we do at that point in time. I mean, there was a lot of different
Mm,
compounding reasons,
we love
but
compounds.
every single Thursday used to be pension day, like back in the day.
Mm.
The amount of calls, this is when I was at the call center part of it, that I would take where I'd have a pensioner on the phone, and we're talking like 8 a.m. First thing they do, they wake up, they call me, they're like, hey, how much money do I have in my bank account? And I'm like, oh, $300 and something. And they're like, oh, it hasn't hit yet. And
Oh,
I'm just sitting there going, holy shit.
that is tough.
You're actually at the point where you have to call the bank every Thursday, or every second Thursday, whenever it was, and ask me for your balance so you know how much you can spend. And they do it, and so you leave the notes on the profile after, like called to check
Mm.
balance, pension hadn't hit
Yes,
yet.
yeah.
An hour later, you'd get another call, and
Has it hit?
you'd go on the notes of the profile, and they've already rung up 4 times that morning to check.
It's
It's soul
sad.
crushing.
Yeah, that is tough.
You're just sitting there going, "Oh man, this poor lady's worked like probably her whole life, and she's just getting absolutely railed waiting for the pension." And you're just like, "Oh, cool." And then when I was doing the management of it, it had hit like maybe midday on a Thursday, and every third call you do what's called an escalate, like
Mm.
you hear a complaint, I want to speak to the manager, and then they're like, "Yep, we'll throw Zeke on there." Um, I jump on, and they'd be like, I need to get an advance on my pension." I'm like, "Sorry, what? What?" And they're actually at that point where they're begging the bank to pay them their pension, knowing it's coming from the government, so they can actually go
What
buy
a few
food.
hours early.
Yeah, like it
That's
just
that is
sucks.
insane.
And that was a huge for everyone out there that can imagine that. Like,
That's me like, all right, I want to help
yeah,
stop this for
I
some people.
I quit that job pretty quick after. I was like, yeah, we're not doing much. Banks are not your friend. We'll leave it there. Um, yeah, interesting
That's
one to
not
think about. Anyone out there with grandparents and stuff, if that's them, I'm deeply sorry. Do you have anything else to add? Any important points?
very
Any investment things they can do, or any?
well, very important to if you're in your 20s and 30s, especially. Don't just think I'm 20, I'm 30. I don't need to worry about my super. This is when you can set yourself up so you don't call Zeke at a call center and ask for a forward payment for your pension. These are the years you've got so much time. You've got around 40, 30 years. And if you invest accordingly in property, for example, which is in our mind, the the best investment, you will be set up. You will be able to live off the rental income, and you won't have to rely on the pension. You won't have to rely on the government. You'll live on your terms. And the best thing is, you can leverage into more investments and build your portfolio to get even more income.
And leave it for your children.
Yeah, and legacy, passive income, travel where you want, do what you want, live the life you want. But I think, yeah, that's my main. I think it's just don't think you're too young. You can always start. And if you got your super fund and your app on your phone, make sure you track that all your contributions have actually been paid to you. I speak to a lot of friends and people in the industry and some clients as well who have had past jobs where some employees, oh no, not employees, there's some
Employers.
employers where some employers don't pay the super and try and be sneaky because they think you don't look. Follow that up. Make sure you've got all your contributions because it all counts. It all matters. Because once you hit a certain threshold, you can really propel your super.
Yeah, we're not offering a lot of solutions on how to increase your super here, but this is more about why you should and things to think about. There's other
Yeah,
episodes that we've talked about it.
with how to increase your super, like you feel free to speak to us. We have a company, Asset Road. If you're familiar with it, we do specialize in investment properties, also in the super, so self-managed super funds. So more than happy to have a chat with you to see if it may be suitable for yourself and appropriate because it's not suitable for everyone pending your life stage or your goals and what you want to accomplish, but it's a good place to start.
It certainly is, and I think we should just wrap it up. You you were on a little spiel before, and you were sounding like a
Whose
bit
skills are right?
motivation. You were like, "This is your chance. You got 30 years. Like,
It is.
now's the time." If you just want to do that again in a bit of a deeper voice, and we'll take a cut and we'll play music over it for everyone, and you can become a motivational speaker.
I like that. You've got 20 to 30 years. This is your chance. Make the time matter. Compound the property, compound the passive income, build those assets. Make sure you look after yourself. Live the life you want, travel where you want, look after who you want, pay yourself what you want. And some people may say, what if it doesn't work out?
What if it does? Catch you all next time.
Ciao.
We hope you enjoyed the episode as always. You know exactly what to do.
Hit that follow button, subscribe, whatever platform you listen to this podcast on. Also share it to friends, families, co workers, whoever you think may benefit from it. But unfortunately, it's the end, and we will see you next week.